You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Alright, so let's move on to UFC Fight Night 99 and 100. It's a double shot on Saturday night, one in the morning and one in the evening, or afternoon and the evening, whichever time zone you're in. And we've got UFC Fight Night 99, Mousasi against Hall, the rematch. To say that Mousasi has an experience edge on this is an understatement.
That is very, very true. Mousasi, man, it's
legend.
Like, yeah, 50 fights or so. He's had a shit ton of bouts. Let me get the exact number here,
I think
because
it's 48.
yeah, it's up there, and I don't even think that counts as kickboxing fights. I think just MMA alone is almost 50 fights. 46 and 2. So 40 wins, 6 losses, 2 draws, almost 50 fights.
Jeez.
And the one fight he's lost in his last 6 was to Uriah Hall. Hence the rematch.
And that wasn't a fluke, was it?
No. Uriah Hall caught him. There is no question. Yeah. And that is the Uriah Hall that everybody thought we would see coming off The Ultimate Fighter. That was the guy he was supposed to be. Since then, not so much.
No.
He didn't gain any momentum off that win like he should have. He crapped the bed with Robert Whittaker. He got TKO'd by Derek Brunson. And now we're trying to figure out, is Uriah Hall really any good at all? The odds makers would tell you no, because Mousasi is a heavy favorite here. Heavy, heavy, heavy favorite.
Yeah, I'm going with Mousasi on this one as well.
I am too. I think he wins the rematch.
Alright, Ross Pearson and Stevie Ray.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna let you make the pick first, and then I'm gonna read you the odds for both of these fights.
I've got Stevie Ray winning this fight by decision.
Okay, and your reasoning would be what?
Now this is just my opinion. I think Ross Pearson should be kicked out of the UFC.
Well, he is actually the favorite here.
No.
Minus 120 to plus 100, but that's a coin flip.
That's a coin flip, okay.
It's not in the main event. Mousasi is minus 600, Hall is plus 450.
Alright. Timothy Johnson and Alexander Volkov.
Very intriguing fight as far as I'm concerned. Volkov, formerly of Bellator.
Mm-hmm.
We know what kind of abilities he has as a heavyweight. He's a very tall heavyweight too. 6'7". That's a lot for any man to deal with. And Timothy Johnson, he's tough, he's durable. He got a decision over Marcin Tybura, so let's take him seriously. He's 10-2. But I just wonder, given the difference between the two of them, Timothy Johnson got some power, short and chunky, might have been a decent wrestler at Division II level, but Alexander Volkov, tall, lots of reach, has power. I think this one goes to the former Bellator heavyweight.
I agree, I'm going with Volkov as well, and that leaves Teruto Ishihara against Artem Lobov.
Before we talk about that, the odds makers actually have Johnson the minus 130, Volkov plus 110. But that's, again, pretty much a coin flip.
Mm-hmm.
As for Lobov and Ishihara, not a coin flip. Ishihara minus 270, Lobov plus 230.
Lobov's there for a paycheck.
Yeah, that's actually closer than I thought it would be. I think they're giving Lobov a little credit just for being a long-time experienced fighter. He's also experienced at losing, but experience does count for something. And anyway, he's 12-12-1, so that really says it all.
Now this show has quite a few names on the undercard, including Ian McCall against Neil Seery.
I'm surprised you didn't say former guest of our show, Ian McCall, because you almost always say that.
Ali Bagatinov against Koji Horiguchi.
Yes, sir. And Kevin Lee versus Magomed Mustafayev.
Zach Cummings and Alexander Yakovlev.
Yeah. Marion Renault and Milena Dudiev. So there are
go on your way.
Yeah, there are some quality UFC Fight Pass fights here.
Now Eastern it's 12:15, so your time zone, Stevie, it's 11:15 in the morning. So it's not exactly breakfast with Fedor, but it'll do.
It will do.
All right, so let's talk about UFC Fight Night 100. Now we're in triple digits for the fight nights, and this one is in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira against Ryan Darth Vader.
That's right.
And without even looking at the odds, I'm going to go with Nogueira.
Well, I will actually tell you the odds. 1 second. Nogueira plus 290, Bader minus 350.
Minus 350. Wow. Okay. Sure, I guess. It just seems a little high to me.
Why do you think that's high?
I don't think Bader wins this fight. I've thought for the last couple of fights he's overrated.
Yeah, well, I've been saying that about Little Nog for a while now.
I just think with the hometown push, Nogueira wins this fight.
I can understand why you believe that, but looking at his last 8 fights, Nogueira is 4-4. That's not exactly lighting my world on fire.
If Bader wins this fight and he wants to make that significant climb in the rankings, he has to dominate Nogueira, and he doesn't do that.
Well, he did pretty damn well against Ilir Latifi and Rashad Evans and Phil Davis. The only person that's given him any trouble is Rumble.
Oh, I heard a story about Rumble Johnson. He was doing press with Cormier in Toronto, and Johnson couldn't have been any nicer to the crew there.
And
like one of the nicest guys. I was like, so like I've heard he's one of the nicest guys, but like from other sources. But it's like this is like the real personality. I was like, wow, it's not all show. I was really taken aback by the how do I say this? Friendly nature of Johnson.
I just don't know why that's a surprise. I remember when he was still a World Series of Fighting guy, and I talked to him a couple of times for conference calls, and always found him very easy to talk to, very easy to ask questions to. He doesn't strike me as a difficult guy.
No, I found it nice that it's still not the legend continues, but it's nice to hear that he's still like that. It's nice I want positive news stories, Stevie. Is that too much to ask?
No, not at all. But speaking of positive, let's get back to the positives on this card.
We're not talking positive drug tests. We're
talking positive as in Thomas Almeida versus Albert Morales, which is a fight I really want to see. I don't know about you, but I'm strongly looking forward to this.
Well, I'm going to miss this fight, obviously, but I will definitely catch it a replay somehow. But I'm looking at, for me, it's a coin flip. I'm going to say Morales, but I'd be happy if Almeida wins as well.
See, I don't know that I really think it's a coin flip, because up until he got knocked out by Cody Garbrandt, this guy was just wrecking shit. He was 21-0 up to that point. Nobody had really laid a hand on him before No Love Garbrandt finally got to him. So, quite frankly, I think the odds makers calling this minus 320 in Almeida's favor have hit the nail on the head here. Morales is not a pushover, but I don't think he's on Almeida's level, except for Alejandro Perez, and that was a majority draw. So, I don't like Morales' chances here. Not at all. I
could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, so be it. But the Morales-Almeida fight, I sense an upset here. The next fight up is Courtney Casey against Claudio Gadelha. And that one is going to be very interesting as well.
Yeah, minus 450 Gadelha. Not at all shocked by that. Casey is 360.
Yeah, it's not a surprise, but, they have to put some fights on here that are, I'm not saying tomato can fights, but Casey is not winning that fight. All right, let's move on to Krzysztof Joko against Tells Ladies.
The odds makers would have this one slightly for Tells Ladies. Minus 155 to plus 135.
All right, so I'm going to go with ladies on this one.
I will as well.
And Warley Alves against Kamaru Usman.
Yes.
That's a good fight.
Yeah, minus 220 for Usman and plus 180 for Alves.
Yeah, Alves is winning that fight for sure.
Really? As the dog?
Yeah, I'm going to give it to him.
You're going to make me look at their records because I'm not convinced.
I have Usman written down as 8-1 and Alves is 10-0.
No, Alves is 10-1.
Oh, 10-1, that's right.
Yeah, and Usman is 8-1.
Okay.
So, of his recent fights, Usman has beaten Marcus Hicks, Haider Hassan, Leon Edwards, and Alexander Yakovlev. So, liking that set of wins for him. I guess I can see why you're picking Alves for the upset here. I don't think it's totally out of line, but I still like Usman in this fight.
All right, let's talk about Sergio Moraes against Zach Atau.
Minus 185 for Moraes and plus 145 for Atau.
Now, looking at this fight, I kind of want to lean towards Atau, but I mean, if these guys fight 10 times, it's gonna be like one guy wins 6, one guy wins 4.
Yeah, probably, but I would go more like 7-3 or 8-2. I think Moraes is the more accomplished fighter because he, you've always said we don't really know whether these guys from Brazil fought real guys before they came over.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've seen in this case with his performances since he left Jungle Fight and came to UFC, the only fight that he lost was the Ultimate Fighter Brazil middleweight tournament. So, other than that, he's done pretty damn well for himself. So, I feel like Moraes is the real deal. And with Atau, I guess again, it's like, what do we really know about him that says, other than beating Joshua Berkman and losing to Jacob Volkman, what do we really know about him? Do we know that he's on Moraes' level? I'm inclined to think not.
Alright, so looking at the prelims, there's one fighter here that caught my eye. You know who I'm talking about.
I'm guessing Rogerio de Lima?
No, I'm thinking, we talked about him earlier in the show. Talking about shoulders popping out.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Manny the Anvil Gamburian is fighting on this card against Johnny Eduardo. On paper, once again, another one of those fights that probably looks better on paper than it will actually be.
Eduardo minus 180, Gamburian plus 140.
Alright, what about you? What about the prelims? Anything that catches your eye?
Well, I believe I just said Rogerio de Lima.
Mm-hmm.
I've developed into a little bit of a fan of this guy. He won 3 out of his last 4 fights, beat Igor Pachaik and Clint Hester, the Head Buster.
Oh, yeah. That was a good fight.
And went to a draw with Ben Ryder before that, and you're going to see him on a main card of Bellator come up here real soon in Thackville, Oklahoma. So that, to me, is saying something about Rogerio de Lima. I think there's untapped potential with this man.
All right, so we have to transition to news because we're running short on time. Did you hear who crashed the Conor McGregor victory party in New York City?
Nate Diaz.
Now, they never crossed paths, but he was spotted in the building.
Yes.
You think he was looking for Conor?
I'm sure he was, but I'm sure that Conor had a massive security contingent around him. I don't think Diaz would have ever gotten even close.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there'd be like 100 security officers or bodyguards or what have you that, oh, sorry about that. There we go. Okay. It'd be a lot of security to protect them from each other, but, interesting to see that reported. We didn't talk about one championship fighting this past weekend. Shinya Aoki lost his title.
That's right.
So, perhaps another promotion, now that he's not the champ anymore, it'll free him up perhaps to move on? Do you think, or does he think one just, makes him happy and puts our money in his pocket, so to speak?
I don't see where Shinya Aoki is gonna go from this, cause, I mean, he's already been in Strikeforce, he's already been in Bellator. I think he's better off continuing to fight for one, even though he lost the title to Edward Faliang, if I'm saying that name correctly. If not, I apologize. But I think he's a star for one, and he stays with one. I can't see him going anywhere else.
I think of him as a big fish in a small pond.
Well, I think he's definitely a big fish for that promotion because he's got a name and he's a well-established star.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, what about the news that Zubaria Tukhugov has been removed from UFC Fight Night 102 for another one of those potential anti-doping violations?
it's going to keep happening.
It's an epidemic, I find.
I don't know. I expect it to happen to at least one or two fighters on every card because.
Well, who's the fighter, the F4W, the guy there? He got popped as well.
Filthy Tom. He maintains that he did no wrong, and I'll wait to see the evidence of that. I'm not a lab analyst. I didn't see the sample. I don't, if you really want to know his side of the story, he's been very open and very public about it. He said what he tested positive for. He said that he didn't take it. He's being pretty transparent about the whole thing.
It's refreshing to see a fighter being this transparent, though.
I mean, it's not really surprising to me with Tom Lawler. He's always been, I'm going to tell you everything in my life, good, bad, and ugly. I mean, this guy will tell you when he threw up after training because he just throws up after training a lot. He doesn't hold back details like that you probably wouldn't want to hear. He just tells you everything.
Now, I'm not up in my, if this is an insult or not, some of the language that's used, sometimes just goes way over my head. But somebody asked McGregor about Nurmagomedov as a potential title contender.
Yeah, didn't I tell you earlier that he really didn't want that fight?
Well, McGregor's called him a pull-out merchant. The hell does that mean?
He's referring to the fact that Khabib's been injured a lot.
Says he has more to prove before a title shot. More to prove.
I disagree.
Kidding me, right?
Yeah, Connor's just being Connor with that.
I'm not even going to address the Money Mayweather comments about Connor. I'm done with Mayweather. I'm not even going to talk about him.
All right.
Michael Page has said that there was a shout out by Fernando Gonzalez at Bellator 165. I'll rephrase that. Michael Page refuses to acknowledge Fernando Gonzalez's prediction, saying, quote, "I'm allergic to bullshit."
Yeah, I was on the call. I heard him say that.
That's a good line. I like that. And I think the only thing I just got off here was Colleen Schneider has signed with Bellator. She'll be debuting in the flyweight division.
Okay.
So Bellator is another good signing. Bellator's really good with their signings on both sides of men's and women's divisions. Like, they're both, I'm not saying a signing frenzy, but it's nice to see Bellator bring in different names. I know they lose names here and there, but it's nice to see Bellator competitive in the, I guess you could say, the free agent market.
Yeah, they are recruiting heavily right now, and they're signing a lot of wrestlers.
What's on tap for Thursday Night AMP?